All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to hop on to our webinar today about our new software release. And this version, just for clarity here, for both PrebuiltML X and X² and Estima would be 4.13.5.3550. So that would be the latest version that you should be looking for, either that or something larger if we've continued to push out other improvements. And today, as we get started, there's lots of different things here that I wanted to review. Some of the things are related to the MLX core software. Some of the things are related to some of the hub things that we've been rolling out, and then of course, then there's this new rolling out that we have of X³ that you may have seen noted in the email as well. So lots of different stuff happening here. We're gonna go through all those different things. But I guess as we get started here, wanted to key on a little bit on this X³ and how that relates to hub. So X³ is really an expansion further of the PrebuiltML hub capabilities that are there. And just to pull up just a quick little slide, and we're going to move on to this next one. So here's just a quick point for some of you. Some of you may have seen hub, you may be aware of it, but maybe there's a little question of, have you really tried it yet? And just as a side note to that, we're going to be having some webinars coming up, again, just pointing out some of the capabilities of hub. Maybe you've put an eye on it before, but maybe didn't really spend much time with it. But we have some webinars coming up on the 25th of May and the 27th of May. And if you haven't been an active user of hub before, and you want to participate in one of those webinars, you can sign up for that, get a coffee on us. We'll send you a gift card if you actually participate in one of those. We're just excited about, as we've been able to get hub all the way full circle here, of the opportunities that might be available for you. And just to highlight what I mean by that, now some of you may have seen this slide before, talking about some of the capabilities of hub and how it allows for just team integration and things like that. But even if you're just a single estimator user, really what hub also allows you to do is to really manage the entire project lifecycle for your takeoffs, your estimating projects that come into you. So whether you actually are a team, there's lots of opportunities for team environment. But again, even if you're just a single estimator, with this latest push in the level of X³, you're able to handle all the different dimensions of the project lifecycle. And so what we mean by that is, so obviously when a project comes to you, there has to be that takeoff request. And how do you receive those requests in? Then of course the project needs to be quote unquote logged in some way. You have to keep track of it in your list, wherever it is that you try to keep track of those items. If you have multiple people, it has to be assigned. The takeoff then has to be started and actually be worked on, and that can be, maybe it's stored locally, maybe it's stored in the cloud. Then opportunities for sending that project out for review or revisions by a salesperson or other project owner to verify that the project, what you did, the estimating work that was done is really to the specs that were desired. The project is then completed, and then also there's opportunities for those takeoff files, the PDFs, the TIFFs, or not the PDF, the PDFs, and maybe perhaps Excel sheets or other things to be delivered back to the customer, to the person who was initially requesting that takeoff. So there's this whole life cycle of that project that all of you are intimately aware of, and it looks different in everybody's business. But with this latest release, we feel we've added in those capabilities kind of around that whole circle within hub to allow you to handle all those different dimensions. So that's kind of the larger picture of where the PrebuiltML hub is at. So with that, I'm going to jump over now into some of the new additions that we've made on the hub side. And then again, we'll also be moving into some of the additions and improvements that we made into the core estimating portion of the software. So I'm going to pull up, actually first I'm going to pull up the hub software here and pull it over in here. Oh, and by the way, just before I forget, I didn't do it earlier, but in the chat feature, the chat feature is available to use, and I'll just send a little chat message here in a moment. And here, if you're interested in those webinars, I just sent in, I'm going to see if I can paste in. Here are where the links would be for the Tuesday webinar and the Thursday webinar. So if you're interested in the signups for those webinars, something that you want to investigate further, I'd love to have you join us for one of those. So looking at Hub here, now I want to look at some of the new things that we're rolling out in this latest version. So up here in the upper right-hand corner, if you're not familiar with Hub, this is where you can get to your account area. I'm going to click on this button here, come to account, and especially on the team tab right here on the left-hand side, there are several new improvements here. So one of them relates to the ability for you to receive projects in, for somebody to submit a project to you for estimating. And that includes a public facing web page that's unique to your team that you can make available to people to do that. And we're going to look here exactly how that works. So the first thing you're going to want to do is come over to the team section and come to the project request settings. And the first step will be down here, you have the option to enable that project request feature. So you can check the box and go ahead and hit save changes as you make changes here so that they're permanently registered for your team. So I've enabled that project request feature. And now up here, you can see that we have this URL, this specific website location. And if we take this link here, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it into a web browser here. And it's going to pull up what here looks like this web page right here. So here's my URL right here that I just pasted in. And now I have this web page that I can actually I can send that link and give that link to any of my customers. And they could come here and they could submit a project for review. We'll get back to that in just a moment. So here we have our web page or our specific spot. Other things that you may want to change is the default estimator. So when projects get submitted in this way, who do they get assigned to automatically? Of course, they can be changed and adjusted after the fact, but what team member that they get assigned to by default. So right now it's just set to myself, which is fine. And then you'll also have noticed that there was some instructions on that page. You have control over those instructions. So if you don't want them to bring you a coffee, for example, here, we can delete that and take that off. Maybe you just want a burger instead. But in any case, however, whatever instructions are needed for your business that you want to communicate to your end users to, maybe it's whether it's, give the link to where the plan downloads are, the plan pages, or whether it's, upload the files, whether it's outline the scope, do you want siding, do you want roofing, do you want just framing, however it is that you want to describe to them instructions to give to them, you can customize that to your needs. The other thing kind of related to this, but really totally separate, is up here at the top. You'll notice that there is now an opportunity for you to edit your team name. This hasn't shown up too many places as of yet as far as your team name, but being with this project request page, it actually shows up on there. You may want to edit it because maybe you just weren't as careful with what team name you gave. So if you come up here, hit the edit button, I could come and I could even just say this is an example lumberyard. And I'll hit there and I'll hit save my changes here. So now I'm going to pop back over here to this web page again. I'm going to refresh the button here on this page and you'll see that we should update. Yep. So here we go. We've got example lumberyard here and now we're getting a burger instead of a coffee. But again, you can update and change those things as needed. So when one of your customers comes to this location, now they can enter their project name. So this is the Smith House and who they are, Bob the builder, and what's their request or email. And we'll just put in example email at PrebuiltML.com. So we'll just make up something, but they can enter that email address for there, and then they can enter the project scope notes. So any notes that they want to add about maybe in response to your instructions up here, or any additional information they want to communicate to you, they could type into here. At this point, they could request the project, and it could just be, perhaps they just had a link in their notes area of where you should get the plan files from. But better yet, they can also then choose to add the files, like the plan image files that were for the project, the blueprints. So I'm going to click the Add Files button here. I'm going to choose the Upload Files, and I'll just go to, I'll just grab a couple of plans, click Open, set those in here, and it's going to complete that upload. And so then when we're done, we'll click Done. And so now and it brings me back to the request a project page. I could choose to request another project if I wanted to. I'll pop in a moment here, I'll pop over and show you what that looks like in the project list once that request is made. But just as we finish up here with some of the capabilities surrounding this, this request public facing website. So a couple things, coming back over here into Hub and to the Team tab in some of the controls that you have. First of all, if you just uncheck this box to enable project request feature, you can just uncheck it and hit Save Changes. Now, nothing else here is going to, you'll still maintain these other settings. You'll still maintain your URL, but in a sense, you just sort of deactivated the page. So if I was to come back here now to the page and refresh it, it will just say that the link is expired. So if for whatever reason you felt you needed to quote unquote shut down that submittal site, at least for a period of time, easy for you to control that and do that. So you're not getting, a bunch of extra stuff. And the other, just from a security standpoint, since this is a public facing URL that you might hand out to different people, if you felt for any reason that link got compromised, just was being used in not an appropriate way, you could always choose for your team to actually then regenerate that URL. So I'm going to actually enable my site again here, hit Save Changes. Just to prove the point here, if I hit refresh, now my page is live again. But then if I want to regenerate that URL, I say, well, I don't want to use that link anymore. I want to sort of get rid of that. I don't like who's going there anymore. So I can regenerate the URL. It will ask you to confirm that. Click yes. And now it gives me a fresh URL to actually use. So now I can come back here. If I was to, this is the old one. If I refresh, again, that link's now expired, but I can put in my new one and I can go to my new site. So we've added some different things since we have a public facing site here, just to give you better control over that security. So great opportunities there. But so now what happens then as far as in that cycle? And I'm just seeing here a couple questions over in the chat stream. Thank you for those. Yes, this session is being recorded, so you should be able to review it at a later time. And there was a question about, can you customize the URL name? At this time, no. So if you wanted it to be, not look so long and stringy or whatever, if you were to bury it inside of a, just simple text that you might give to somebody of, submit a project, and then underneath lies the other items, would be the only option that there are today. Coming back over then to more the front side of PrebuiltML, or of Hub. So here in the project list, you can see here, there's that Smith house. And you can see also we now have introduced another status for jobs. Previously we had logged in and in progress and so on from there. So there's one now at the beginning that's called requested. And if I have it selected, you can see I have an additional option now. I can choose to accept it. Perhaps you actually get a request that comes in and it's like, well, no, we're not going to do that project. Then of course you could just choose to delete that project, or just remove it from your system. But here now, since we have this additional status of requested, you're able to tell for sure that, okay, yeah, these are new ones that I haven't reviewed yet. And you could choose to accept it. And at that point, it's going to move it forward into the status of logged in. It can be reassigned to a different estimator if you want, or you could then continue on and start the project. So that's the general flow there of how you could use this new plan submittal option and customize it and give it to your external users. So again, this could be useful whether you're a larger organization with multiple players involved, or even if you're just a single person estimator and you would want to shift your clients toward submitting project work through right into the Hub flow so that you can just use Hub for everything. And then, of course, just a quick reminder then back over here, go back to the account. This is not a new feature, but just reminding you that here in the team settings, you can choose to include output file access links in your project status change emails, which sounds a little cryptic, but essentially what that will do if you have that turned on is that when any salespeople or external contacts that you have associated with your projects, so back over here in the project, so if you have a salesperson or you have additional contacts that you've added to your teams, when they get update emails saying that, hey, your project is completed or it needs to be revised, in that email that they receive, if they don't want to use the phone app, for example, although that is available for free for people to use who are on your team, but if they prefer not to and they just want to use what's in their email, there would be a link in that email where they can just navigate right to those files and download them. So shifting on to another dimension of stuff that we've added here in this latest version, and this also relates to some X3 capabilities. It comes over here to the reports section. So here in the reports, this isn't new itself per se. This was here before. You can have a quick snapshot of just your own personal activity of what's going on. You know, what's currently active for you, what's logged in, where is the revisions, and so on. And then over here in the recently completed projects, you can see, you know, what you completed last week, how that relates to this week. So just kind of a quick progress report. But then the more exciting part would be the custom reports. So I'm going to click on that button, and it's going to launch over to the website where you can view more information about your PrebuiltML Hub. So project data, and I'm going to make this slide this over just so we can have a little more real estate to view things. So previously, this was already released, the project portions, but now we've also introduced the ability for you to have product reporting. So the distinction between the two, project reporting is related to more of just stuff that's going on with projects, different statuses, estimators, work that's being done. You can filter things by different team members, you know, those types of things and how they're related to work that's being accomplished. But now we've introduced the ability for you to have an idea of what's going on with your products. So basically stuff that you actually have estimated, things that specific products that you're estimating, and instead of just being able to, you know, look at them project by project by project, this is giving you a view that is across projects that you've completed. So for example, here's the lumber type report. You can see here we have report types. You can set the dates and times and end dates where you want to be running these reports for. But here in the lumber report, you can see, okay, here's the total lineal footage of lumber that I specified across that period of time. I can view that by day, or I can view it by month, or however it is that you want to see it organized. Scrolling further down, you can get a breakdown of, you know, what's the amount of 2x4 and 2x6, whether it was pre-cuts, different length pre-cuts that you might have called will be listed here, 2x4 and 2x6 forms. Linear footage of stuff based on whether it was a pre-cut, treated material, or just, you know, other standard material. And then shifting over to the right, you have information even on your more structural framing sheathing type material that you may have been calling. So just kind of a quick summary report of there. And then further down even than that would be the lumber products, an overview there of different types of lumber products, you know, outside the scope of 2x4 and 2x6, and more specific breakdowns that may be happening. So there's an example of what's available for lumber, but we also have additional report types that you can go to. One would be related to your engineered wood products. So if you bump over here, again, kind of similar capabilities, but specific to the engineered wood products. So broken down by I-joist, rims, solid, and solid material. Again, and as you go further down, like, so here's my solid material, you can see different things that were there. And then finally, there's also one for siding. Again, broken down in ways that are more applicable to siding. So whether it's more your lap siding or panel or exterior trim, shingle panels, and again, different breakdowns for those different items. So again, those are controllable by report type. You've got your review dates here, and then also your estimators. So if you wanted to drill into more of, what specific people on your team are doing, or even if you're just a single estimator, if you're doing work for different salespeople and you wanted to get a report more based on, okay, for the projects I'm doing for them, how much am I specifying? So lots of information that we've started to make available, and this is where I will actually pause. Is, to a certain extent, we felt that this was information that you could find useful to your business, but we also didn't necessarily have all the knowledge of what you might find useful. So we put this out here as a starting place for that. But then again, I'll pull out here that back over here in Hub, we do have this feedback button right up here. If you click it here, there's just a little built-in form. You can send us your just how things are going for you, and then even more interesting would be, what are the improvements or things that you'd like to be made. So whether it's Hub as a whole or different portions of it, we'd love to always hear feedback about that. But also as it relates to the project reporting, if you have different information of how you would like to see and how you would have that presented, that is always very interesting for us to see and to hear from you on. I'm going to shift over here toward the core software now, and so a couple of the improvements we made there. But just as we finish up some of this Hub stuff in X3, I want to point out a couple things. So for those of you who have access to X² today, and there's many of you out there that do, if you are currently using Hub, then you have already been promoted to X3. So if you're already an active user of Hub, you've already been promoted to X3 capabilities. So you have full functionality of everything. For those of you who are Estimate users, that is included with that capability is included with your subscription. So if you aren't using Hub yet, it's there and it's available to you. If you have access to X² today, if you want to start using Hub now, if you actually are say, well, I've been aware of it, and maybe I'm going to go to one of those webinars. If you start making use of Hub and are actively in the next period of time, a few weeks, we again will automatically upgrade you to X³ to get that full functionality available to you. And then finally, I will point out, for those of you that are only on MLX Standard, we are going to be coming up here offering a promo that if you want to upgrade to X², for a period of time, we will actually bump you all the way up to X³. If you make that switch to X², we'll take you all the way up to full functionality of all of the Hub features. So just making you aware of that. So then popping over here to the course estimating portion of Prebuilt. Couple new updates here as it relates to drawing. So a couple of them are related to keyboard drawing capabilities. So I'm over here in the digitizer. I've got a page that's scaled, and so a couple different ways that these can be used. One would be if you're just wanting precise measurements that go around an area, and you want to be able to draw them in to match perfectly. I'm going to come here. I've got a dimension floor line. It starts with 30 feet. So I'm going to take a floor tool, for example, and I'm going to start it here. And now once I have my container started, instead of progressing around and clicking corners, what I can do instead is I can just use the arrow keys on the keyboard. So I'm going to press the up arrow in this case on my keyboard. And as a result, I'm going to get this little dialog box that's going to show up. And since I've pushed the up arrow, you can see the degrees are already 90 degrees. I could adjust those to be something else. I'll look at that in a moment. But now I just need to define what's the distance I want to travel. Default is 10 feet, but of course, as soon as you start typing, you're just going to type right over the top of that. So I'm going to say 30 feet, and I'm going to hit enter. It's going to shift the view so I can see where I landed. And now I can hit the arrow key to the right, and I'm going to go over 17 feet 2 inches to match the dimension on the plan, and up 2 feet. So I'll keep going around the plan, just following what is given. So up 9, over 12, down 9, and over, let's see here, I think that's what do we got here? 14.4 and down 30. And so now I've completed and gone all the way around the perimeter of the building. So if you wanted to be more precise in how you're actually drawing something out, you have capabilities of doing that. And then of course, stating the obvious here, but if you ever had, you just have a blank page. So if you want to add a blank page, by the way, if you weren't aware that you can do that, to add a blank page into your project, or even if you have no pages at all, right click on the add pages button, choose add a blank page. You can pick your page size right here. Click OK. And also you have the ability to come here and add a grid to that page. So there's some good options there if you weren't aware of those. But again, using that keyboard drawing capability, if you just had a simple little box of a plan that you wanted to enter in, you could just draw that out. I could just take an area tool right here and I could say, okay, I want to, go up 10 feet over 20, down 10 over 5, and, whatever else that you want to do, down 10, et cetera, et cetera. So you can, easily get the shape or dimensions of something that you don't even necessarily have the specific set of plans for. In addition to keyboard drawing, we've also introduced the ability to do what we would call keyboard dragging, in a sense of basically moving nodes on the page. So as a couple quick examples, I got this floor system I've already drawn in for this house. We've got a 6-inch cantilever hanging off the front here. So let's just say that there was a revision and that is going to shift to a full 1-foot cantilever. So what I can do is I can select that takeoff item, that area, and I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to select both of these nodes. So keyboard dragging relates to nodes, the ones that are been selected as green on the page. So I've highlighted both of those as green nodes. I'm going to hit instead of hitting just the down arrow, if you're doing keyboard dragging, since you're not in the draw mode, you'll have to use the Control function. So I'm going to hit Control on my keyboard and hit the down arrow. And again, I'm going to get that similar dialog box that I had before. In this case, I only want to move it 6 inches. So I'll do 0-6, hit Enter, and it's going to shift those 2 nodes down those 6 inches. As another example of how you could leverage that capability, let's say that all of this framing on this side, we just kind of wanted to shift, or not, we wanted to pull it down another foot to sort of expand the room. So what I could do is I could select here to select that beam, and I'm going to use my control feature to select both of those nodes. I'm going to select this node on this beam, and then I'll select the container and grab those 2 nodes. So I've got all that framing selected, all those, the important green nodes. Hit the control arrow, hit the down key, and I could shift everything down 2 feet. And now it's expanded everything, moving all those nodes at the same time, and it's all been moved very precisely the amount of dimension that I want it to go. So keyboard drawing on the one hand, keyboard dragging for cases where you're needing to make adjustments to existing items. This works for drawing containers as well as any of the linear items as well. So if you just wanted to draw a segment line, but you want it to be exactly 10 feet, again, you could come here, I could click my point and I can say hit the up arrow and have it go 10 feet, or maybe I want to change that direction at that point and I say I want it to go at a 45-degree angle. And so it will go at that 45-degree angle. So capabilities there, we're surrounding that. Coming over here to kind of adding on to a feature that we released more recently, relates to the add labels or the hide labels feature that was previously sent out. So for those of you who weren't aware of it, if you come to the takeoff items list, if you ever want to just hide all of the labels on the page, you can hit the hide labels button. Sometimes that can be useful if you're trying to do some cleanup work or just see what's going on underneath. So maybe you want to just hide them all temporarily. Last release, we introduced something that, because for probably most of our users that were out there, it would not be very helpful to create a framing layout with the labels hidden. And so in response to some feedback, we had actually made it so that when you created a framing layout, it would automatically turn those labels back on for you in case you had accidentally remembered to turn them back on again if you had had them off. We got some additional feedback that said, well, some people actually did want to create layouts with labels off in this function. So come to the tools and settings section here. Now you do have an option here that says always show labels when capturing layouts. So you can either toggle on or off. I believe the default will be for on for you. So if it's on like this, that means that if I create a framing layout of that area right now, it's going to automatically turn those labels on for me. That way it corresponds with the legend in the upper right-hand corner and gives the cross-referencing behavior information. But if you don't want that, you want to be able to create labels off, or create a layout with them off, then you can always come here and say, uncheck that box. And now it's just going to respect whatever you have on the page. So if you have them on, it will show, but if you have them turned off like this, you can go around and create it, and it will just leave them in that off position. Of course, just pointing out the obvious, then you would, of course, not have that cross-reference information over here for your material list. Anyways, that's available in the tools and the settings section. Finally, one other item related is maybe a small point, but maybe helpful to some of you for your workflows, relates to the product selector. Again, a slight segue or a slight rabbit trail here, a reminder of something that we introduced fairly recently would be a hotkey for getting to the product, the more products area. So normally if you come to a takeoff item and you right click on it, you go to product, and then that's off your, it's off the screen. You can't see it, but it says that you go to the more products window at that point. You also have the option to just select an item and hit Control M on your keyboard, and that will pull you straight into that product selector. But the new update that we've made in this version is that you can use the Enter key to close or complete the selection on the product selector. So if I click into the product selector here and I make a selection like LSL or whatever, normally or in past versions, I would have hit Tab to complete my choice. So I would hit Tab on the keyboard and it would close the menu. We've now expanded that so that if you hit Enter, then it also completes or makes that selection. Previously, Enter just didn't do anything at all. But we heard from some feedback from some users that if we added that in, that would be helpful. So in addition to that being true here, also if you come over to the material list, if you're used to working in the material list, that same adjustment exists over here as well. So if you click into the hardware section, you pick cut washer. So whereas previously only Tab would have completed that selection, Enter now also will respond in a similar way and complete the selection as you have it. So as finishing here then, just a reminder, since we're rolling out some of these, more of this full completion of Hub, where you're able to manage all the different parts, I'll remind you again of those webinars, and those links are in the chat stream there if you wanted to join one of those. We'll be sending out some other emails announcing about those, but especially if you haven't really given Hub much of a try yet, just haven't had the opportunity, or maybe haven't necessarily seen where it would fit, encourage you, come get a cup of coffee, so to speak, with us, and come hear about it and see how it might be a good fit for your business. So thanks again for hopping on today. And once again, as always, if you had feedback about how things could be improved, that love to hear from you. And I'm just seeing here in the chat window, there's a question: is this version of the software live yet? Yes, this version of the software is currently available. You should have gotten the download available for it, but if you haven't, feel free to reach out to us at support@prebuiltml.com, and we can get those links for you. Once again, thanks for joining us today, and we'll talk to you more next time.